There was a fatal police shooting in South Bend, Indiana, which led Mayor Pete Buttigieg to pause in his campaign to travel back to South Bend and deal with the situation. But the fact of the matter is South Bend has had a history of racial issues involving the cops. We have reported on this previously. TYT Investigates has been very focused on this beat. And now we have an anonymous source from the South Bend Police Department who has spoken to Jonathan Larson of TYT Investigates and given him some more details into the individuals who were involved in this shooting. Now first, let me give you the details on what happened over the weekend. Sergeant Ryan O'Neill shot Eric Jack Logan, who's 54 years old, on Sunday morning after responding to a call about a, quote, suspicious individual going through cars. The officer said he shot Logan after Logan approached with a knife raised. Logan was taken to a hospital where he died. Now here's the issue. There was no body cam footage because the officer who shot him did not turn his body cam on. So that is strike number one. That is obviously incredibly problematic. Now, County Prosecutor Ken Cotter said O'Neill told investigators he spotted Logan in a car, questioned him, and fired 2 shots when Logan approached him with a knife. Cotter said that because O'Neill did not manually activate his body camera, there was no video of the shooting.
Okay, now let me give you an important piece of information from Jonathan's report. O'Neill told the South Bend Police Department dispatch in audio released Monday night, so we got this recently, quote, the guy threw a knife at me. So they should ask O'Neill, which one is it? Did you shoot him because he was approaching you with a knife and you were felt in imminent danger and worried you were gonna lose your life? Or he had already thrown the knife, according to what you first originally told dispatch, and hence no longer pose a danger to you. So that is going to be a very important issue in what I hope is his trial.
And there are still questions about whether the knife has been, taken in as evidence by the cops. Like there are so many details to the story that are left out.
Whether it exists.
Whether it exists, exactly. I mean, that's really what's implied by asking that question. But let me give you more details about the officer who shot and killed this man. So O'Neill was actually promoted to sergeant in 2015 by the South Bend Police Department Chief Scott Ruszkowski, who testified in 2017 that O'Neill was promoted despite internal reports about alleged racist rhetoric by O'Neill. So the actual chief of the department acknowledged in sworn testimony that this officer had a racial bias, that he was saying all sorts of racist things, but he's not the only one. According to court documents, O'Neill was named by Lieutenant David Newton in an internal South Bend Police Department report as having made, quote, inappropriate racial remarks to 2 officers back in 2008. The following month, Newton, who is black, sent a memo to higher ups alleging that he was the subject of retaliation for reporting O'Neill's remarks.
So I want to stay on Newton for 1 second here and diverge from the O'Neill story, because this unfortunately is a pattern that we have now seen in the South Bend Police Department over and over again, and it is left completely unaddressed. So Newton is a guy who was involved in an incident where there were reports that there were guns. He goes outside to deal with that. The police chief at the time in South Bend is with him in that building, does not come out with him. And then that becomes a big issue and is later investigated by Indiana State Police. But unfortunately there, Buttigieg covered up what that report had actually said. So that was another exclusive broken by Jonathan Larson and TYT Investigates. And the report said that all of the eyewitnesses disagreed with the police chief, and that the police chief had not backed up that black police officer.
Right.
Buttigieg said, oh yeah, it seems to corroborate what my police chief, who I picked, says, and moved on. But there's a reason why you shouldn't move on other than the injustice. It's because then things might get worse. If you keep encouraging people to take the wrong actions and there's never any consequences, eventually things like this happen. And again, this is not an isolated incident. When Buttigieg came in, there was a black police chief. Buttigieg demoted him. And then why? Because there was tapes that showed a lot of the cops were saying racist things. And that police chief and another person there had revealed that information, and that was inconvenient for the South Bend Police Department. So that police chief was demoted, a white guy was put in place. That's the guy who doesn't back up the black police officer. Now we have a third police chief, And he has promoted this guy that a lot of people on the force knew was racist. In fact, there was an investigation about it, and he'd been briefly taken off the beat. And then not only does he get put back on the beat, but he gets promoted. And now wait till you see some of the things he had said before he shot the black guy who might or might not have been armed just the other day.
Right, so here are a few examples. He allegedly said, quote, "Do you want to get some of that black meat?" That is something that he asked a fellow officer regarding a black woman. He also said, seeing an interracial couple, O'Neal allegedly said, "Man, I hate seeing that, it makes me sick. That makes me want to throw up."
Okay, now hold up, guys. So there's two things there. One, you really want a cop patrolling African-American areas of a neighborhood, or anywhere for that matter, that thinks that interracial couples are sickening. I mean, what is this? I mean, this is the year 2019. And I know I keep getting surprised by it, and African Americans are not surprised by it. This is what they have lived with for their whole lives. But God damn it, are we ever gonna do anything about it? And the second part of it is classic projection. He's like, it makes me sick. And then he turns around to his fellow cop on another day and he's like, let's go get some black meat. What happened? I thought you were against interracial couples. It turns out you actually are in favor of that, want it in some, but you know, the self-hatred and all the things that go into it. And then you take it on who? Of course, the black citizens.
So as I mentioned, there is an anonymous South Bend Police Department source who spoke to Jonathan Larson, and here are some of the details that individual shared with TYT Investigates. In one incident, the anonymous source claimed to have told a black woman to leave the scene, and O'Neal tases her in the back. They had to remove the taser prongs from her spine. So here's a woman, told to leave. She leaves the scene, and as she's walking away, she's allegedly tased in the back by O'Neal. Now here's some more from the anonymous source. Another time we had a guy walking who was mentally crazy. He was on something. His mother wanted him back in the house. He went walking down the alley. We caught up with him. O'Neal grabbed him, lay down on him and started punching. I just covered his face up. I put my hand on the guy's head so he couldn't get punched.
So that's, and by the way, the source is a police officer. Yes. He's a veteran of the South Bend Police Department. So it's not like, hey, they found a random assistant or some sort of activist or a defense attorney. No, this is another cop. And he's like, this guy's so bad, I had to jump in and cover the face of the guy he was beating for no reason. When another cop has to do that, you know how bad the O'Neal has to be in order for that to happen? When Jonathan asked the source, why was O'Neal punching the man, who by the way, of course, was black, okay, in this example that Anna just gave you, the officer replied, I have no idea.
Yeah. That's just the beginning though.
Yes.
So obviously O'Neal is deeply problematic. This is the officer who shot and killed a man over the weekend. But there's a different officer who arrived to the scene who also has a troubled past when it comes to race relations in South Bend. Another officer on the scene within minutes of the fatal shooting, Aaron Nepper, and two other officers were found by Aaron Nepper. So Nepper and two other officers were actually found by a jury to have violated the rights of Deshaun Franklin, a black teenager who was asleep when they entered his home without permission in July of 2012, tried to handcuff him, began punching him, and ultimately used a stun gun on him. Now, that person was not the person they were looking for, but they didn't ask any questions. They just busted into his home and started beating him down. Now, the jury found the officers guilty in this case, and they awarded the family a whopping $18. $1 for each constitutional violation. The city then sued the attorney for Franklin to recoup $1,500 in legal costs.
So look, I get it. The jury, for whatever reason, thought, haha, so you were terribly treated by the cops, and we're just gonna rub it in your face by giving you $18 for all the times they did things wrong to you. And that's I don't know why that jury decided that, but that's pretty sickening.
What's also sickening was the reaction from Buttigieg, if you ask me. Can I get to that?
Yeah, I do, but I just want to say, the city didn't have to rub salt in those wounds by suing the guy and going, oh yeah, you won $18, and we know we were wrong, we were adjudicated to be wrong, but give me $1,500 in legal fees. That's punitive. So this is cultural in South Bend, unfortunately. So this doesn't look like the idyllic thing that Buttigieg describes on the campaign trail. That's not the city we're seeing when we investigated.
So when it comes to that case where Nepper and 2 other officers bust into a home and they end up beating up the wrong person, first of all, they shouldn't beat up anyone. I mean, if you're gonna arrest someone, arrest someone. Why do you have to bust into their homes and beat them down like that? But anyway, Buttigieg has resisted commenting specifically about Nepper, but told the Indianapolis Star in 2016 that South Bend policing has, quote, deep problems. The paper said Buttigieg acknowledges he didn't fully understand how much work it would take to reform the police department.
So look, I want to be clear about this. There's about 2 things about Buttigieg. One, do I think that Buttigieg is deeply racist and that's why he allows this to happen? No, I don't know him from Adam. I don't know his heart. I don't know his brain. I don't know any of that, okay? I would, and honestly, based on his track record on other issues, I would be surprised by that. But does it show lack of courage that when faced with a police department that clearly needs significant reform, over and over again, he chose not to reform it? Well, you might say, well, that might be inexperience, he's a young mayor, et cetera, to which I would say, exactly, right? So I wish he got more experience and applied it better in situations like this and cared about that community more than he cared about the power structure in South Bend. Yes, it would ruffle feathers if the mayor went after the police department, and it might be problematic for a political career. But are you gonna look out after your citizens or not? And then the second point is, look, and I'm telling, this is systemic. Go to tyt.com, read all of Jonathan Larson's stories about South Bend, and now there are sources all over South Bend saying, thank God that you guys covered this, because this is what we've been saying for year after year after year, and nothing ever gets done about it. But Buttigieg also appoints, by the way, the Board of Public Safety, and the same cop that talked about O'Neill, who was Larson's source, saying that O'Neill was, quote, a known racist who called people the N-word, said, yeah, I told the sergeant did nothing about it. Internal Affairs, in another story, is a total joke when Newton says, yeah, the white police chief didn't back me up. Internal Affairs invites the police chief into the middle of the interview. It's preposterous, right? And then the officer in this case says, yeah, that board that Buttigieg appointed is a total joke. So there's never any accountability. But guys, if this is happening in South Bend, imagine how many other places it's happening. And we happen to know about this because Buttigieg is running for president, and now, unfortunately, someone got shot and killed. But Larson uncovered the hanging of another young black man in South Bend from a number of years ago, and now people are looking for justice in that case. Imagine if you turn that rock over in all the different cities and small towns across the country. This is what black folks have been saying for all of this time. Did you think that they were all lying all across the country? That they were all making it up? No, it's their real experience. It happens everywhere. So the story isn't about Buttigieg as much as it is about how African Americans are treated in this country, and oftentimes by police officers. In this particular case, they should investigate O'Neill to the full extent of the law, find out, get these sources that Jonathan has. If he can do it as a reporter, well, a real investigation should be able to find other people to corroborate this, and I think O'Neill should be in a world of trouble for what he's done here. 2 easy ways to follow the Young Turks. One is hit the subscribe button down below, then you're a TYT subscriber, and second is ring the bell. And when you do that on YouTube, you're notified of our videos.